Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Fisher, manager of the Prince George's County Department of Media Relations. We have some very important updates on a case that's been featured predominantly over the past couple of days on all of your programs. To start off, I'd like to introduce the Chief of Police for Prince George's County, Malik Aziz.
Good morning. I'd like to first start by thanking our county executive, the Honorable Angela Alsobrooks, for being here today, Deputy Commander Brian Kim of the U.S. Marshal Service, Chief Deputy Rachel Gibson of the District of Maryland U.S. Marshal Service, and our state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy. I'm also joined by my executive command staff and the commanders of Division 4 Oxon Hill, to include the lead investigator in this case, Detective Jonathan Marks. I'd also like to thank the hard work of the PGPD Fugitive Squad and our Major Crimes Homicide Unit. The Prince George's County Police Department and our partners never wavered in our commitment to thoroughly investigate this case and ensure everyone responsible was arrested and brought to justice. And that's what brings us here today. The 15-year-old who brazenly boarded a county school bus, pulled out a gun, and pulled the trigger multiple times with the goal of killing another teen is in PGPD custody. The suspect, who goes by the name Baby K, is charged as an adult for his shocking crimes. And it's my sincere hope that he will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Yesterday afternoon, at approximately 2:40 p.m., members of the U.S. Marshal Service Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force, which includes PGPD officers and officers from other agencies, located the suspect, who was on foot in the 6300 block of Baltimore Avenue in Riverdale Park area. He was taken into custody without incident and brought here to Prince George's County Police Department. Many of you have seen the photos or the videos of the crime committed on the school bus, a place where no child or employee should fear for his or her safety. The crime shocked this community. It shocked even the most veteran law enforcement officers. To quickly recap, on May 1st, 2023, the bus had just stopped at Iverson Street and Sutler Drive to drop off students. While stopped, 3 students boarded the bus and began to attack the victim, who remained on the bus. One of the suspects, later identified as Baby K, displayed a handgun and attempted to shoot the victim multiple times, but detectives believe the weapon malfunctioned. The 2 other juvenile suspects who committed the attempted murder on the bus are also in custody. A juvenile female is also charged with conspiracy in connection with this case. They are all charged as adults. Baby K is charged with attempted first-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, assault, firearms offenses, and additional charges. We hope this arrest and the arrest of the 3 other individuals reinforces our commitment to arrest anyone who commits a crime, no matter their age. I must remember that the vast majority of our youth are not committing crimes. They're living out their lives in a way that they will become productive citizens. I realized over 2.5 decades ago that we simply could not arrest our way out of a crime problem. The solution then tilted the quest for justice too far in the other direction, which will simply not provide us with the positive resolution that all of us desire. We need balance, the type of equilibrium that seeks justice for victims, makes the community safe, and provides real resources to young offenders and offenders alike. We have had 136 shootings this year, and 27 resulted in homicides. In addition, there have been 69 non-contact shootings. Violence becoming a prevalent and frequent way of life. Of the 84 arrests that we've had for carjackings this year, 51 has been for juveniles. marking the third straight year that juvenile arrests for the violent crime of carjackings have exceeded the arrests for adults. With that, it is my pleasure to welcome our county executive to make a few remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you for being here this morning, and I want to thank the chief as well for his excellent leadership. I want to thank the department as well for their leadership, and want to thank the men and women who do this work every single day. Thank them for the absolutely tremendous job that they are doing and have done on this particular case. They work to quickly identify the suspects in this case, make initial arrest, and now just yesterday, as you heard, they have brought into custody the final suspect that we were looking for. And so I want to add my thanks as well to the U.S. Marshal Service for the support that they provided in this case. I'd like to also thank a person who is a hero, quite literally, and that is the bus driver in this case. Anyone who had the misfortune of looking at the tape, the videotape in this case, saw what all of us saw. It was absolutely horrific what we witnessed on that video. And the bus driver in this case can't be described as anything other than courageous, and she acted very effectively. And thereby, I think it was just incredible, the leadership that she demonstrated. The truth of the matter is also that no bus driver should ever have to worry about violence like this happening while they're doing their job. Again, the violence that we witnessed was outrageous. It was appalling. And now that these children, and they are children, in this case, 14, 15, and 16 years old, have been arrested, it is the case that they absolutely must be held accountable. Now, we know that there's been an increase in violence in our community and in communities all across the nation, especially youth violence. And I want you to know that this government has spared no expense to address this issue. We made sure that our police department have had the funding that they need to do their jobs, while also putting in place new resources and programs that provide more opportunities for our youth and young adults. In this year's budget that we just passed, we are fully funding our school system budget by investing a historic $2.8 billion, which is 6.5% increase over our historic funding from last year. We've invested $390 million directly to support our police department in this year's budget, ensuring that they have the resources they need to combat the rise in crime. That funding supports 4 new recruit classes for a total of 120 new police officers. We are also providing incentives for new police officers. We've allocated funding for the Police Explorers program to help expose young people to positive interactions with police and potential careers in law enforcement. We're also putting another $2.5 million toward youth development programs in our county. Those programs are similar to our summer youth enrichment program. We have the summer passport programs, and over the past 4 years, even in a pandemic, we hired over 17,000 youth through the summer youth enrichment program, and over another 1,600 youth have been provided opportunities through our summer passport program. You should know that we've also put another $1 million toward Hope in Action, the anti-violence initiative, which has deployed violence interrupters in communities across the county and funded nonprofits to provide wraparound services to youth and to young adults. Through Hope in Action, we have served over 29,000 residents to date who have been served with wraparound services such as after-school programming, mental health services, workforce development, and housing support. We're working to expand behavioral health services because we know that mental health is a top healthcare need for our county, and we've invested $23.2 million just this year in our budget for behavioral health programs. We've created a Returning Citizens Affairs division within our office last year to better support returning citizens as they transition back into our community. And just last month, they held their first annual summit as a part of the National Second Chance Month, in addition to a series of events throughout the month to support returning citizens. We also know that stable and affordable housing is a critical need. And so we've invested $45 million to preserve and create new affordable housing to make sure our families have that. The point is, I can go on and on and on about all of the programs and to demonstrate that we spared no expense to address this issue. It is the case, however, that although we're making investments in our police department, we're making critical investments all along the way, it is still the case that the issue of violence with our children quite literally cannot be resolved just by the police department. It is an issue that literally cannot be resolved simply by the government alone. We need our community to help us as partners in this work, to wrap their arms around these children. And we need to ask ourselves, because as you've heard the chief say, the people that we are arresting primarily, especially for the crime of armed carjacking, the one that has had our community almost literally under siege. None of us feel safe. I don't feel safe stopping at a gas station to get gas. Look all around. We all feel somewhat under siege. And we have to ask ourselves, if these are children, if they are 14, 15, and 16 years old, where are their parents? It's a fair question. Where are their family members? Where are the aunties, the uncles, the godmamas? Where are the people who are responsible for these youth? They are not responsible for themselves. They are not. So who's looking out for these children? We have to ask ourselves, in this case, how was it possible for a child to attempt to shoot another child and then to be able to be on the run for weeks? And as our department and the U.S. Marshal Service spared no expense to find the child, the truth of the matter is these are questions that the government can't answer alone. Can't. Where was this child? For a month, the child was on the lam. We have to make sure that in instances like this, we are holding people accountable for the acts of violence that they commit in our community. Is absolutely unacceptable. And as the chief has said, it's a small segment of our kids. The vast majority of our kids, you've seen them all on social media. They've been at proms and they're enjoying themselves, preparing for the next phase of their lives. We're celebrating our kids who are graduating from high school this week. The vast majority of our kids are doing exactly what they should do. They are tremendous and exceptional children, but there's a small segment of our kids who, I have to tell you, because I hear it all the time, program. We can create every program known to man, and it will do very little if the children who commit these acts of violence are not held accountable. And so we are working to make sure that that happens, because that is the only way that the violence will end. So again, I want to thank everybody involved in this system. I want to thank the men and women of this department. I want to thank the U.S. Marshal Service. We're here with the state's attorney. I want to thank everyone who is working diligently to make sure that our streets are safe, because our community deserves to live in a place that is safe. But we have to ask the tough question. These are children. Who's responsible for these children? And let's work together as a community to solve this issue. So I now would like to turn over the microphone to our state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy.
Thank you so much, Madam County Executive, and thank you so much to my partner, literally in crime, our Chief Malik Aziz, the men and women of the Prince George's County Police Department, the U.S. Marshals, as well as members of my team, in particular, the Chief of our Homicide and Strategic Investigations Unit, who is here today, Sherry Waldrop, who will be handling this case along with ASA Dora Miles Moore. We stand today in solidarity and unity with the county. We also have sent a very strong message through our prosecutions and through our work in this case that each and every individual involved will be held accountable. So far, 4 individuals have been arrested. 3 have had bond review hearings. All 3 have been held without bond. The bond review in this case against Baby K will likely be held tomorrow. And so we will use the same arguments. We will have some of the same witnesses who have testified at other bond hearings come, in particular those who have been impacted by this horrific crime. So we hope to see the same outcome tomorrow as we have in the prior bond matters. I did also, as the county executive, want to just really highlight the bus driver in this case. One of the things that I noted, and I'm sure the exec and the chief and others did too, was that she prayed. She prayed for the child who was on the bus. She prayed for our community. And I do believe that there is power in prayer. And to think what could have happened on the bus that day, I think nothing but prayer ensured that the tragedy that could have occurred did not occur. But now our job is to hold each and every one of these individuals accountable. And so we have a commitment to doing just that. We've been working hand in hand with the Prince George's County Police Department since this incident came to light. And we will continue to work with our partners to ensure that justice is served. Thank you.
We'll open the floor for any questions that you may have. For me? Okay.
If you're able to talk about, as was mentioned, where's this kid been? Who's been harboring him? Will someone face any charges as a result? He had to be somewhere. And also, where did he get this gun?
Well, it's a good question on where has a 15-year-old been. And we're investigating that right now. I would, like to have a belief that adults or someone was helping a 15-year-old elude the police, where he would not come forth to answer up to his horrific crime. But we don't know that at this particular time. The investigation is still new for us. It is still active. And we're seeking to bring some resolution to that alone. We want to know that too. We're seeking answers to that. I will say that it would be my belief that if we can prove that adults were helping a 15-year-old elude the justice arm for the law, then that person should face the consequences also. There's accountability for everyone here. At this point, we do not have that weapon in our possession at this current time, and we do not know where that weapon was obtained. I would add this: under the new laws of the state of Maryland, it has become more difficult for police to question young people about anything without not a parental consent. Parental consent is not even in play. It is an attorney has to give permission over the parent so that we can ask questions for those who are directly involved in these type of horrific crimes. Next question.
This investigation, are you able to question baby K? Have you been able to question the others?
Yeah, I'll reiterate that. The answer is that we could not. It's not. Yes, those kind of laws they do hamper. I do understand. The direction that people are trying to go when you go back 15, 20, 30, 40 years and you see injustices that have cracked the system, and then you have in a new era, in a new time, those protections have given way to a protection of some people who have committed very heinous crimes, which, yes, that does hamper what we are doing now as of October 1st last year.
County Executive, are you going to work in any way with the delegation to Annapolis to change some of the reform laws? Last week said she's going to work with the delegation on this. Do you think that the juvenile justice reform laws have gone too far, specifically like?
Well, I think the chief answered it, that in their investigations, they're finding that it is difficult and that it has created a barrier to investigating cases. I'll let the state's attorney talk about what she sees in terms of how it's unfolding in their own cases. But I can tell you what the other hindrance is. There's a hindrance in terms of investigating the cases, as you've heard, and that is becoming more and more difficult to hold juveniles accountable. And I think the public cares about that. They're often asking, I see it all over, what is going on? People are trying to get a sense for what the problem is. That is part of the problem. And you've heard it from the chief's mouth. The state's attorney, I know, can probably answer what she's seeing in her office. But the other hindrance that cannot be ignored is that we have 15 and 14-year-olds running about our community at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, armed and dangerous, unaccountable, and unafraid. In this case, you know, we have a kid who, if we look at it honestly, is both victim and perpetrator. Clearly, you're a victim. We can't determine whether he was registered in school, where he lived. I mean, this kid was roaming about, apparently unsupervised and dangerous and armed. And that question is a good question, is how is that allowed to happen? And that surely has to factor into what we're seeing in this picture that everybody's trying to understand. So when we talk about what the failures are, there are multiple lines of failure, but this kid, as far as I can tell, was first apparently victim, and then he became a perpetrator.
So should parents be held accountable?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What way?
You know, and that's best for the folks who are investigating this case to determine what the lines of failure are. But I think parents have responsibility over their children. I think most people agree. We'll see what the law says about parents and their kids. But I think that, yes, parents and family members ought to have responsibility for their kids. That's what the law says, is that kids are not responsible for themselves.
Madam Executive, any thought to reinstating a curfew?
Well, the curfew is ongoing. The curfew is just, I have to remind you, just one tool. One of the things we realize is that the environment changes over time. And so it may be the case that the curfew is effective during one period. We found that it was effective as we began to enforce it last year. And then the environment changed. And so we have to continue to change our tactics. We'll follow the leadership of the police department. They'll let us know which tactics to employ at which time. But the curfew is not an elixir, a complete cure-all. It's just one of the many tactics that we've employed, strategies to engage parents and family members and to have them asking the question, where is my son or daughter? Between the times of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. when we saw that the majority of these crimes are being committed.
Chief.
Chief, there's a lot of people online talking specifically about this case more directly. One of the comments are being made is that this juvenile apparently tweeted out or sent a social media message out before saying snakes out of the cage, that he had a history with the juvenile justice system. What more can you tell us about that? And the other part of the question is, like, how can the community trust that there is accountability if we're seeing someone online bragging about being in and out of the system?
Well, first, I think you're seeing a greater part of what is happening in the greater culture. This is a newer age of social media, and with no accountability. That, you know, the First Amendment, the right to say anything you so please on the internet, and so we're witnessing it, we're living it right now, and those are what you just said is some tame things to what I've seen that's going across social media. And that is the really first part of, you know, what's going on with that individual tweeting out things. What was the second part of your question?
Well, you mentioned that, but can you tell us any more about what you all know of his history? You may have been a victim first and now.
I believe what the county executive is alluding to. We have a system, and a system is built upon parental accountability, taking care of a young person. People who bring young people into the world have an obligation to take care of that young person, make sure they go into school, make sure they're living their lives in a positive way, bringing them back in line with rightful and, you know, progressive type of discipline that is meaningful for that young child as well as, you know, rewards. And what we have seen, even in this particular case, is that the question is a legitimate question then where's parental accountability? And that parental accountability can, if you leave it alone, it's unchecked, it's not balanced, then that child has no guidance. That youth has no guidance. And with no guidance, then that youthful individual becomes a victim of the circumstances that may prevail around him. Therefore, then exacting the harm upon a community or others in a vicious, sick cycle of things. And I think that's really what it is. So what we're looking for now is, how do we actually hold people accountable in a meaningful way, and bring real accountability or resolution to situations that involve parents? Because let's face it, some parents are really ill-equipped to take care of young people that they have brought into the world as their parent or guardian. And some of them need help. Some of them, we talk about rehabilitation all the time. And I find it problematic that we speak on the means, to rehabilitate somebody. And that's a problem because they haven't been rehabilitated in the first place.
Can I ask you to speak to whether he is confirmed to have been associated with any other violent incidents in the county? And also,
We
can you speak
have
to-
handled him before, and right now he is in that system, supposed to be accountable to that system that he was handled before, and we passed that baton. There are other cogs and entities in this wheel who is supposed to track that from our initial handling of him, but he has been handled for at least one incident with us.
It's notable that
The protections are so strong that you cannot say this young man's name, even though he's charged as an adult. I would like to ask you about any details you can share about how he was locked up. Was he alone? Was a vehicle involved? Was he just out on the street or in a building? Could you tell us anything about these circumstances?
Well, let me answer the first question. The name. I mean, this is the name he goes by. This is the name that he put out there, that the streets, know him by. He loves the name. So we were well within our right as to say his name. The decision has been made over here in the past 24 months that we would not release a juvenile's name until that case would play out with the state attorney, because if it is waived back to juvenile court, then we have placed the name. We were well within our right to put his name out, but when it is waived back, we don't take those things back from the internet. We can't get them back. So the policy here has been not to say those names until the adjudication actually is confirmed. And I know the state attorney can speak, better to that. The second deal, right now, he was alone. We arrested him alone. There was no one else with him right there at that moment where we arrested him. There are other parts or factors in the investigation that we want to know. How did this individual get there? Where has he been all of this time? What has he been doing in these weeks that we've been looking for him, that he's had all this time to turn himself in, and since he is committing adult offenses, that he would allow himself to come before a court. But young people know the law better than we do.
Collaborators creating highly produced music videos. I'm not suggesting any of these folks are involved or not, but he clearly had a support system, a lot of people. These videos have been posted recently. Producers have since taken them down. He had a whole system. Is that fair to report it that way?
Well, I would agree that he had a system because he eluded us for a few weeks, but no one escapes. That's why we had a U.S. Marshals Task Force, to look for individuals like that who were skirted. So no doubt that he had help. I don't think any reasonable person would agree with that statement. I can't disagree with anything you just said. One person at a time.
Have other departments around the region reached out to you since the arrest to, inquire about other incidents you're getting involved with?
Yes, we have been in contact with at least one other area law enforcement agency at this particular time. Nothing has has been a result of that. But yes, there are some interests in this young individual. And so we're going to continue to work with them throughout this investigation. They're working with them, as we speak. And we're going to, I'm sure that those other agencies who have a great interest in baby K is going to mete out a result that is proper and fair, if anything at all. But that's what an investigation is for. Yes.
Hi, Scott Taylor, I've got 2 questions for you, Chief, real quick. You all talked about accountability by parents. I'd like to know, how accountable and transparent do you think you need to be in the police department with the public and their questions?
Well, I think this is part of accountability. Right now, we're here before you. You have our county executive, our state's attorney, and back of me, the men and women who make this thing happen. That is accountability. That is answering, the questions. Some of those are very tough questions, which we don't claim to have the total solution. But what we desire to be is part of the solution, part of a team to come to a meaningful result. I'll take a couple of more questions.
I'd like to follow up my second question because other reporters have an opportunity to do that too.
Thank you,
Can you
everybody.
tell the
That's it.
public the reasons you
Yeah.
won't sit down
Thank
with
you,
7
everybody.
News
Thanks for
to
coming.
answer questions on camera about your department not reporting criminal convictions?